Stated in my former video, my previous video, the last one I did on on the cult of life to combat the liberal death cult, I was talking about the Genesis diet, but the article I had was not really that detailed. So I found one that's a little more detailed, and I'm going to go into this, then I'm going to go into the Daniel diet, then I'm going to go into Ellen G. White, then I'm going to go into Dr. John Harvey Kellogg. I am going to do a series of videos on Dr. Kellogg after I get done my series of videos on the China study. But what's important to understand is the Genesis diet, as I said, is very similar to what our chimpanzee and bonobo cousins eat, okay? And it's important to remember that man is a great ape, okay? Another thing that's important is, why is diet and health so important to the message of living in harmony with nature? Well, because the human being, if you follow most spiritual traditions, you will find that the human being is a microcosm of God. Whether it's the Judeo-Christian, the Abrahamic faiths, or whether it's the Dharmic faiths with the Atman and the Brahman, the human being is a microcosm of the divine, of the universe, okay? So in a way, managing our own health is managing our own ecology. And as they say, all love of others starts with a love of the self. So we need to learn to take care of ourselves before we learn to take care of others. The others being the universe, the others being God, in a way. So it's a give-give situation with God, okay? So what is the Genesis diet? Well, seed-yielding plants, nuts, seeds, which include hemp seed, flax seeds, sesame seeds, sunflower seeds, grains, wheat, corn, barley, rice, quinoa, millet, amaranth, legumes, all the beans like kidney beans, black beans, peas, black-eyed peas, peanuts, lentils, soybeans, etc. The nightshade vegetables, which are actually fruits like eggplant, peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers, squash, green beans, etc. Melons like watermelon, cantaloupe, honeydew, all that jazz. Papayas are not really melons, but you know what I mean, all them things. Oranges, apples, lemons, limes, bananas, strawberries, coconuts, grapes, dates, avocados, olives, which technically are all fruits. Okay, these lists are not meant to be exhaustive, but hopefully this gives you a clear picture of what the first diet included. Now, there's a book that I would highly recommend everybody buy, which is called The Top 100 Foods to Eat in the Zone by Dr. Barry Sears. And you will notice there's a diverse amount of foods from every one of these food groups that you can eat. And following that will help keep your insulin levels in control, your blood sugar in control, and things like that. You don't necessarily have to follow the exact proportions of the zone diet, but you do have to eat foods in, reasonable quantities, but also eat foods that are health promoting. So which foods are not included in the original diet? Animals, like chicken, turkey, beef, pork. Fish and seafood. Anything excreted from an animal, like a goat or cow, milk, cheese, eggs, etc. Insects, mushrooms, leafy greens, root vegetables. I would not go that far, although in the Genesis diet, that is true that root vegetables are not included in the diet. And I'm not a big fan of potatoes, but we're going to get into that with the Daniel diet. Okay, are you surprised that root vegetables like carrots and potatoes and leafy greens like kale and spinach were not included? This is because this is a fruitarian diet. Remember I explained in an earlier video that a fruitarian diet can actually be fairly balanced. Okay, the problem with most fruitarian diets is they don't understand that seeds are included in a fruitarian diet, and those seeds include beans and lentils and things of that nature. But God does not expand the food list until after the fall of man, but right out of the gate, those foods were not on the original menu. So remember that. That is true, that if you obey the biblical concept of the original diet, that was not in there. Now, I'm using this as an allegory, okay? I do believe in the chimpanzee and bonobo diet, which was omnivorous, and that's why I'm promoting and encouraging people to get the top 100 foods to eat in the zone so that they can follow a balanced, anti-inflammatory, low insulin stimulating version of this diet. So in short, Adam and Eve were on a whole foods, plant-based diet. They were originally vegans, and this person is not going to make an educated guess that their food was also raw. I do not recommend raw food. Humans evolved to eat cooked food. Okay? There is no mention of cooking methods or any kind of meal preparation at all in the text. Okay, that's true. So I'm going to move on, okay. So, Genesis 1:29 is still vitally important. I believe that. I believe a lot of the dietary stuff in the Bible and in the laws of Manu and in other sacred texts are based on naturalistic observation, the observation of nature, and what promotes health. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the concept of the prophet Daniel and his diet. So what is the Daniel fast? The Daniel fast in Christianity is a partial fast. It's a fast, okay? According to the Christian tradition of what a fast is, according to the Christian or the Catholic tradition of what a fast is, it's a fast, okay? So in which meat, dairy, alcohol, and other rich foods are avoided in favor of vegetables and water in order to be more sensitive to God. The fast is based on the lifelong kosher diet of the Jewish hero Daniel in the biblical book of Daniel, and the 3-week mourning fast in which Daniel abstained from all meat and wine. Among Catholic and mainline Protestant Christians, the Daniel fast has been practiced by some during the 40-day season of Lent, though the Daniel fast can variously be set at 3 weeks or even 10 days, as such evangelical Christian churches, such as those of the Baptist tradition, have partaken in the fast at various times of the year. I think the best time to partake of the Daniel fast is year-round by adhering to a Seventh-day Adventist diet. The passage in chapter 1 refers to a 10-day fast wherein Daniel and others with him were permitted to eat vegetables and water to avoid the Babylonian king's food and wine. After remaining healthy at the end of the 10-day period, they continued the vegetable diet for the 3 weeks of their education. The passage in chapter 10 refers to the 3-week fast of no meat, wine, or rich food. In addition to the practices of fasting and abstinence undertaken during the Daniel fast, Christians may also add spiritual disciplines such as daily church attendance, increased prayer, as well as the reading of sacred scripture and a daily devotional. Description. According to those who encourage this form of fasting, the aim is to refrain from eating what are described in Daniel as royal foods, including meats and wine. Instead, the diet consists only of vegetables and water. Pulses is used instead of vegetables in some translations. Pulses in this context is often taken as food grown from seed, including fruit, vegetables, or lentils. Lentils are pulses and beans are pulses. Keep that in mind. Nebuchadnezzar II became king of the Chaldean Empire. In 605 BC, he invaded the Israelite kingdom of Judah. In 604 BC, the 5th year of the reign of King, whoever the heck that is, of Judah, after became king, Nebuchadnezzar attacked the Israelite capital of Jerusalem in 597 BCE. In the biblical narrative, for those that don't know, I don't know if any of my viewers don't know this. I would assume all of my viewers do know this. BCE is a non-Christian way to say BC, okay? And what that means is before the Common Era, which means before the modern era. In the biblical narrative of the first chapter of the book of Daniel, Nebuchadnezzar's siege of Jerusalem happened in the 3rd year, yada, 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 Chaldeans, blah, blah, blah. The king appointed them a daily portion of the king's dainties, and of the wine which he drank, and that they should be nourished 3 years, that at the end thereof they should stand before the king. Now among these were of the children of Judah Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And Daniel proposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the king's dainties. Now this is important because what you have to consider, think about all the garbage people eat. Okay? A lot of the diseases that the royalty used to get, like diabetes, gout, things of this nature, kidney stones, etc., these are things that the poorest of the poor get now because they're eating of the rich foods, of the junk, of the meat, of garbage foods. So then said Daniel to the steward whom the prince of eunuchs had appointed over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink. So he hearkened unto them in this matter, and proved them 10 days. And at the end of 10 days their countenances appeared fairer, and they were fatter in flesh than all the youths that did eat of the king's dainties. So the steward took away their dainties and the wine, and they should drink, and gave them pulse. After continuing with the diet during 3 years of training, they are judged by the king to be mentally superior to all of his own counselors. Cyrus the Great captured Babylon in 539 BCE, 58 years after the fall of Jerusalem in the narrative. The 10th chapter, in those days and then this is what Daniel says in the book of Daniel. He says, in those days I, Daniel, was mourning 3 whole weeks. I ate no pleasant bread, neither came flesh nor wine into my mouth. The practice. The Daniel fast is derived from the Bible, which states in Daniel 10:3 that I ate no pleasant bread, blah, blah. We already went over that. In the early church, the canons of Hippolytus authorize only bread and salt to be consumed during the Holy Week, the last week of Lent. The practice of fasting and abstaining from alcohol, meat, and dairy products during the entire liturgical season, Lent, became established in the church. In modern times, the Daniel fast has gained popularity among Christians such as Catholics and Methodists, among others during the Lenten season, for those seeking to return to traditional norms of Christian fasting. It is practiced during other times of the year, too, by evangelical Christian churches such as the Saddleback Church, a church in the Baptist tradition. The Daniel fast prescribes a vegan diet in that it excludes the consumption of animal products. The diet also excludes processed foods, additives, preservatives, flavorings, sweeteners, caffeine, alcohol, oils, and products made with white flours. Ellen G. White, founder of the Seventh-day Adventist tradition, states that the example of Daniel, that a strict compliance with the requirements of God is beneficial to the health of the body and mind. In January 2000, now I don't believe that you should be restricting all that. Caffeine, yeah, and that's what Ellen G. White says, maybe caffeine. So let's take a look at Ellen G. White. Okay, who was Ellen G. White? I'll take a look at that real quick. Ellen Gould White was an American author and co-founder of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, along with other Adventist leaders, such as Joseph Bates, blah, 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 Seventh-day Adventist Church, spouse, this dude, whatever. Let's see if I can find the health message. Major writings, major teachings. Boom. Okay, theology, blah, 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 obedience to reveal genuine education, health reform. Here we go. White expounded greatly on the subjects of health, healthy eating, and a vegetarian diet. In her book, Counsels on Diet and Foods, I strongly recommend people read that book. She gives advice on the right foods and on moderation. She also warns against the use of tobacco, which was medically accepted in her day. Her views are expressed in the writings Healthful Living and Health Food Ministry and the Ministry of Healing. White wrote in the Ministry of Healing, grains, this is the diet, Okay, this is the whole diet, just so people understand. Grains, fruits, nuts, and vegetables constitute the diet chosen for us by the Creator. That's the diet, okay? She is the co-founder of many health sanitariums, the most famous of which, of course, is the Battle Creek Sanitarium, which was run by John Harvey Kellogg, and the Loma Linda Sanitarium, that is now name of Loma Linda University Medical Center. She hired American physician, inventor, and businessman John Harvey Kellogg. Her work for health reform and emphasis on healthy lifestyle is seen as the cause of the city of Loma Linda being named by researcher Dan Butner as a blue zone where residents live for longer lives than the average lifespan. The health reform prophecy she delivered have become church doctrine. To glorify God, to glorify God does not make vegetarianism a requirement for salvation. The most vegetarian church fellowship in North America, where over half of Adventists in North America are vegetarian or vegan. Her health reform writing focused on human health, but her statements also included compassion towards animals, which was unusual for her time. Major writings, of course: Patriarchs and Prophets, Prophets and Kings, Desire of the Ages, The Acts of the Apostles, The Great Controversy, Steps to Christ, Christ's Object Lessons, Education. This is where she teaches about how to educate children. The Ministry of Healing, Thoughts from the Mount of Blessing, Historic Legacy, Ellen G. White, Ellen G. White Estate. So let's see if we can go to some external links here. Wikipedia Commons. This is an excellent resource if you're interested in her writings. So here we go. So this has daily devotionals. Does this still have her writings? I thought it did. I've used this to read her writings. Okay, biblical basis, modern prophet. Maybe not. Let me see. Could have sworn I used that. Adventist Archives, that's pretty decent. Now this is on LibriVox. LibriVox is an excellent resource for many things. So you can download her works here. Christ's Subject Lessons, The Desire Education, Great Controversy, Steps Towards Christ. And you can also find counsel on diets and health on YouTube. So what do I mean that man is a microcosm? Well, it has to do with occult cosmology or spiritual cosmology. As I said, I'm a pantheist. I'm a scientific pantheist, but I was brought back to a semi-spiritual concept of pantheism by the writings of Ellen G. White. So when we look at the universe, it is a vast expanse of different forms of energy, intro-parading, blah, blah, blah. This observes by scientific study of frequency of light waves reaching the earth, yada, yada, yada. The second law of thermodynamics, yada, yada, yada. Philosophers, yada, da, 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 yada, da, da, da. Obviously, you can follow this on your own. This doesn't really go into it. So I'm just going to tell you the gist of it. So essentially, what you have to understand is you are part of the universe, and in a way, you are a smaller version of the universe. A great way to understand this is the concepts in the Upanishads about how the Atman and the Brahman are one. The Atman is the true self. The Brahman is the unknowable source of God. It's just God, okay? But the Atman, which is your true self, and the Brahman are one, and yoga helps you gain union with the Brahman. And I'm going to move on here. So what is the Adventist health movement? The Seventh-day Adventist Church recognizes the autonomy of each individual. So it recognizes the autonomy of each individual. Oh, geez, oh man, what's going on here? And his or her God-given power of choice rather than mandating mandating the standards of behaviors, Adventists call upon one another to live as positive examples of God's love. Adventists believe in the key to wellness lies in a life of balance and temperance. Nature creates a wealth of good things that lead to vibrant health. Pure water, fresh air, and sunlight, when used appropriately, promote clean and healthy lives. Exercise and avoidance of harmful substances such as tobacco and mind-altering substances lead to clear minds and wise choices. You can't expect to think clearly. This is the thing that you have to understand. From the concept of, say, scientific pantheism, seeing things clearly and objectively is kind of a mandatory part of being a scientific pantheist. Well, you're not going to be able to do that if you're not eating properly and not taking care of yourself properly and are, using mind-altering substances. So exercise and the avoidance of harmful substances such as tobacco, alcohol, and mind-altering substances lead to clear minds and wise choices. A well-balanced vegetarian diet that avoids the consumption of meat coupled with intake of legumes, whole grains, nuts, fruits, and vegetables, along with a source of vitamin B12 will promote vigorous health. Such health is the gift from a loving God, or from the universe, from nature itself, because you're obeying nature's laws to gain nature's blessings. As I said, anything that puts you in tune with health, it puts you in tune with the universe, puts you in tune with God. Okay, so we're going to move on here. So what are the 8 laws of health? These 8 laws of health work because they're nature's laws of health. They really are. These were based on naturalistic observation. Okay. Nutrition. Eating plenty of fruits and vegetables or even cutting out meat completely will promote good health, more energy, and a longer life. These are things that are proven by research. Okay, exercise is so important. It's so important to get up and get moving. Exercise for 15 to 20 minutes at least 4 times a week to lose weight, strengthen your heart, and have more energy. Water. Your body is made up of mostly water. When you do not take in enough water, your body dries up and cells begin to die. A healthy body is a hydrated body. Water cleanses the body by helping to eliminate wastes and toxins. Drink 1 ounce of water per 2 pounds of body weight every day. Sunshine. Spend time outside in sunshine every day. The morning hours or the late afternoon hours are ideal. The sunshine provides needed vitamins and elevates your mood. Notice that they mentioned the morning hours and the late afternoon hours. This is to avoid sun damage, but to get plenty of sun without the damaging effects of, say, the noon sun. Temperance. Self-control is important in every area of life. Temperance means having a healthy balance between working and resting, faith, eating, and drinking. It also means using self-control to choose not to do things that are harmful, such as drinking alcohol, doing drugs, or having promiscuous sex. Air. Breathing fresh air is essential. Now, this is the thing. This is common sense. This is nature's common sense. Keep that in mind. Air. Breathing fresh air is essential to good health. Breathing deeply fills the body with oxygen and can help to relax you when you are tense. Rest. Sleep is very important to maintain a healthy body when you are exhausted and run down. And there's sleep. It activates DNA repair mechanisms, it cleans beta amyloid plaques, it does a lot. So yeah, when you sleep, it basically helps you rebuild yourself properly and cleanse yourself properly. 8 hours of sleep every night. The hours before midnight are the most beneficial. Second, when God created the world, blah, blah, blah. Trust in God. You have to remember, a lot of the the biblical stuff, I see that as a perfect allegory. Number 8, trust in God. As I said, what you really have to remember is that you're not God. Okay? That's the biggest thing. Realize that you can't control everything. And once you do that, it's very liberating to know that you can't change everything, and you don't have to. So John Harvey Kellogg's concept of biologic living is more in tune with my concepts. So this is Ellen G. White, God's Great Medicine, water, pure, soft water for disease, for health, for cleanliness, for luxury, from health. That's from the book it was from. So both John Harvey Kellogg and his health reform contemporary Sylvester Graham often enjoy mention whenever the subject of their respective health food creations, Kellogg's cereal and graham crackers, are brought to the table. Both men were convinced of the rapid deterioration of American societal body due to the market force changes, epidemics, and wide variety of religious movements gaining force. Both men also focused on the body as a medium, of spiritual redemption, a neglected system of control whose divinely penned manual had been lost in the vagaries of flower refinement and masturbatory excess. Okay, Kellogg's story is inextricably linked with the beginnings of the Seventh-day Adventist, formerly the Sabbatarian Adventists, a religious movement developed in the wake of the Great Disappointment. As a youth in Battle Creek, Michigan, Kellogg was chosen by Ellen White, co-founder of the Seventh-day Adventists, as her de facto son. The Whites opened a health center in part in response to the continued dominance of heroic medicine. A system of healing based on Galen's humoral system, heroic medicine often involved the use of corrosive medicines and bloodletting. Kind of what killed Abraham Lincoln. Healing practices which were viewed with horror by the Whites and many of their American contemporaries. Hydrotherapy, or the water cure, gained in popularity in response to the aggressive methods of heroic medicine. That's God's Great Medicine right there. That's what she's talking about. White viewed health reform as the paramount factor in salvation. She believed that illness, meat-eating, and sexual excess were a tripartite blight inflicted upon humanity after the transgressions of Adam and Eve in the garden. White also based her understanding of health on Mosaic dietary laws and their subsequent reinforcement in the personhood of Christ. The millenarian views of Seventh-day Adventists strongly informed this preoccupation with health reform and the purity of the body. If the millennium was fast approaching, as they believed it was. Now again, I believe this is allegorical. I believe that really the idea is to bring about God's kingdom on earth through the use of technology, through transhumanism and things of that nature. But I do believe that this is allegorical, and I will probably get into Mormon transhumanism. How better to translate into Christ's kingdom than with a clean, receptive mind facilitated by the proper maintenance of its vessel? As a certain person that wrote a certain book, Nature's Eternal Religion, says, what you want is you want a clean mind. Well, I'm actually paraphrasing. This isn't what he said. But a clean mind in a clean body, in a clean society, in a clean environment, in a clean planet. These principles informed the creation of Western Health Reform Institute, a place where the application of drugs would only come after attempts at healing the body through nature, that is, the water, air, light, heat, food, sleep, rest, recreation, etc. Each visitor would be inculcated with the principles of right living and would be welcome regardless of their religious denomination. After being trained as a medical doctor, Kellogg assumed leadership at White's Temple of Health, later renamed the Battle Creek Sanitarium, a word coined by Kellogg himself and often referred to simply as the SAN. The facility offered hydrotherapy, heat and light therapies, promoted calisthenics, and served a strict vegetarian diet influenced by Graham's dietary principles. Kellogg worked indefatigably at the sand, putting in 18-hour days without visible signs of wear. Among his many efforts was an attempt to discredit the 19th century cult of female invalidism, which taught that women were inherently of weaker physical faculties than their male counterparts. In response, women at the sand were encouraged to exercise and shed their overly restrictive garments in favor of loose clothes. The sand could hardly keep up with the demand for visitors and was therefore ever expanding physically, necessitating at one point 1,000 workers to keep the institution in working order. To ensure the highest quality of food, 400 acres were annexed to the facility to develop fruit orchards, a dairy farm, and vegetable production. Each guest room enjoyed electricity, an advanced ventilation system to ensure clean air, as well as hot and cold running water. Kellogg incorporated his ideas for health into a total system he termed biologic living. The philosophy drew its essential inspiration from the belief in the intimate relationship between the body and morality. Kellogg argued for minimal interference in cases of illness in order that the body's natural ability to assume health would be assisted rather than interrupted. He favored amending the thought of medical secretarians such as Graham with concentration on the development of medical science. Like many of the Christian physiologists of the time, he preached a lifestyle void of meat and caffeine, and even advocated eliminating eggs and dairy. His approach was not only about the health of humans, but the well-being of all animals. Instead, Kellogg emphasized a diet rich in fresh foods and whole grains, a lifestyle with ample fresh air and regular exercise, and void of sexual excess and masturbation. To the modern mind, Kellogg and Graham's aggressive denunciations of masturbation. See, this is the thing where Kellogg screwed up, is his denunciation of sexuality, which has to do with the morality of Christianity, although he did make up for it by promoting eugenics later. The vehemence with which these men and their contemporaries levied against, but what you have to understand, this idea, the denunciations of masturbation and sexuality at that time were normal by the medical community, okay? But I will argue again and again that the views of the past, which constituted Okay, but where does this get us in understanding these details to the label blah, blah? If we label Kellogg and Graham insane for their concentration on the damning effects of masturbation, we dam up our openness. What you have to understand, if we damn them, we damn the whole practice of medicine and the evolution of medical science. And we also forget the fact that Kellogg was way above, beyond his time, to the fact that biologic living, or the Adventist health message, whatever you want to call it, is responsible for people living a very, 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 very long time these days. So White and the rest of the Christian physiologist party of the 19th century were in part so very insistent on the elimination of masturbation, blah, 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 and the environment, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Oh, it does not get into his work with eugenics. Walter Veith is a zoologist that converted to Seventh-day Adventism. Veith was the professor of zoology at the department at University of Cape Town in South Africa. After joining the Seventh-day Adventist Church, he rejected the theory of evolution. See, this is what's funny, is he actually came to an exact opposite conclusion as me. So what Walter Veith did is, when he became an Adventist, he basically saw that the health message makes good sense, good scientific sense, and for whatever reason, he decided if it makes good scientific sense, then everything must be true, every Christian thing must be true, and he converted right then to Seventh-day Adventism. I, on the other hand, who was already a scientific pantheist, when I read Ellen G. White's works, I said, well, this makes good scientific sense, and it seems like these things are universally true. Therefore, let me look at other religions, and what do you know? They're saying similar things. Religions are obviously based on naturalistic observation. Every concept of God is a misinterpretation of the universe as God, and God is the universe. The universe is God. Scientific pantheism is confirmed. Walter Veith was born in 1949 and grew up in a strict Catholic home. His mother was a Protestant. Died early from cancer. Veith was told by his religion teacher that because his mother was non-Catholic, she would languish forever and ever in hell. Walter Veith began studying zoology at the university at Stellenbosch, where he graduated with a Master of Science in Zoology. His thesis dealt with the propagation of dwarf chameleons, a 2-year postgraduate course at the University of Cape Town. Followed in 1979, his thesis was the autoradiographic and electron microscope study of embryonic nutrition in the Teleost Clinis supercilius. He also attended lectures on zoology at the universities of Durban, Westfield, and teaching in religious development. After graduation, Veith became an adjunct professor at the University of Stellenbosch, and until 1987 gave lectures in zoology. Early in the 1980s, after his young son fell seriously ill, believing it was demonic possession and recovered allegedly with the help of a Catholic priest, he and his wife returned to the Catholic faith. But a few years later, he developed doubts about Catholicism. I guess he was always a Christian. Through the influence of a craftsman who renovated his kitchen, he and his wife joined the Adventist faith. In his first lectures as an adjunct professor, he had a student who rejected what she called the lie of evolutionism and instead maintained the truth of biblical creation. He soundly put her in her place. Now his new faith and his own Bible studies led him to adopt this belief, which brought him into conflict with what he was teaching because of his lectures on the alleged scientific evidence for biblical creation, blah, 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 Does this cover his work on the health message? Lectures, sanctuary doctrine, Veith's view, conspiracy theories, anti-Semitism. He was accused of anti-Semitism in a lecture in Nuremberg, blah, blah, blah. The leadership of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Germany, Austria, Switzerland decided that these statements were anti-Semitic and discriminatory. So Veith claimed that the Holocaust was used to herd together the Jews from all over Europe so that they could be resettled in Palestine. And this was considered anti-Semitic. However, various of the German Seventh-day Adventist groups are getting around this ban by inviting Veith into larger independent event halls. Amazing discoveries. Here we go. Walter Veith replied that the presentation was not meant to be anti-Semitic in any way, and they distanced themselves from anti-Semitism and racism. Veith blamed the accusation of anti-Semitism on linguistic inadequacy because German is a foreign language for him, adding that in Germany there is a hypersensitivity to statements about the persecution of the Jews. According to Amazing Discoveries, Arno Hamburger, a member of Nuremberg City Council and first chairman of the Jewish religious community speaking for the local Jewish community, expressed the view that there was no recognizable anti-Semitism in Veith's statement. Books, Something Different, Vegan Cookery, More Great Tasty Recipes, Nuremberg Schoch, Rediscovered Diet, The Influence of Diet on Our Health. That's from Stuttgart Scientific Publishing Company. The Genesis Conflict, Amazing Discoveries, yada yada, Truth is What Matters, publications. So it didn't go over his main view of the health message. I will be getting into Walter Veith on the health message in a little bit. I'm going to call that the end of this video.